Welcome to the Elemental Awakening. All right, welcome everyone. I'm G. This is a good friend of mine, Tim. Finally nailed this guy down to have a chat. It happened at a weekend up at his cottage. And a year ago we were here and had a men's group retreat. It was an amazing experience. He invited me back, so I'm here. And I thought I'm an opportunist. Now I can grab him for 20 minutes of his time and share a bit of his story with you. Just want to welcome Tim to the Elemental Awakening.
Thanks, bro. Pumped to be here at my cottage on the Elemental Awakening podcast.
No better place. So me and Tim have known each other for quite a while, a few mutual friends. He's a great guy, and we're going to talk a bit about his journey into a few different things. Mainly his entrepreneurial journey into health in the health food market and his bone broth line. So Tim, I guess just to start a little bit of the backstory, like who is Tim and how did he get into being an entrepreneur and selling the world's greatest bone broth?
Yeah, backstory I guess would be pretty much around like 2012 or so. I was, starting to get into paleo, eating well. Read a book called It Starts With Food, and that was all about like the Whole30 diet and all that. And one of the things they said in the book was like, if you're gonna eat good quality foods, like, and you can only really afford like, one part of your diet to be good, like high quality, like make sure it's the meat. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get good quality meat. And that's when I started to just call basically every farmer that was around the Toronto area within like a 2-hour radius, and pretty much sourced around like 20-30 farmers, and a lot of them were like sold out. A lot of them were like, oh, we're not harvesting until whatever. And then finally found one that was like, yeah, we can sell you some beef. And so I bought like half a cow from them. Like I drove there, talked to the guy.
Just like half cow.
Yeah, like 100% grass fed. You see the cows, you see the farmer, and like something clicked for me there. It was just like, it was like very obvious to me that like, man, this is such a great way to get your food. This is this makes sense to me that you go somewhere you go and meet the person who's like harvesting the food and is really connected to the food to get your food, and then I started to like, there's just something dehumanizing about getting your food from a grocery store, so this was like a really cool experience, and it started to lead me down the path of eating well, moving my body, like really just living this more healthy lifestyle.
Did you have any health conditions that led you to want to get healthier meat or like to get healthier? Was there anything specifically, or you just want to be stronger and perform better?
Like, not consciously, honestly, but like looking back after a few years, I was like, man, I had some crazy digestive issues growing up. Like I would have to run to the washroom. I would even shit my pants sometimes, like that. When I was young. Like I don't share that with a lot of people, but well, I'll share it here. It's a safe space.
I appreciate the vulnerability.
Yeah. But yeah, man, it was wild. Like my parents didn't think it was a big deal because it was just like, oh, this is what happens, like this is just whatever. And I didn't eat great growing up, like McDonald's a lot and stuff like that. And so anyway, that started to lead me towards eating a lot healthier, sourcing good quality meat, seeing how the difference between good quality meat and sourcing from a local farm and conventional meat, particularly beef, was like pretty disgusting.
Is it like, so I'm a vegetarian. I remember eating meat, but probably not enough to like know the difference between like grass-fed versus organic versus conventional, like AAA cuts or whatever they try to sell you in the marketing. Yeah. Was it like a taste thing? Was it like the way you felt and digested it, or all of the above?
To be honest, initially it was like, obviously it tastes different. It definitely tastes different. There's like more of a gamier taste in grass-fed beef and stuff like that, but it was mostly just a health thing and like a conscious thing where I'm just like, I know what's going on in these other farms and it's pretty disgusting, and that's not the kind of energy I want to take in, so it was more along the lines of that.
Yeah, I remember before going vegetarian, I started watching some of these documentaries where they sort of have a little expose on what goes on, and for me it was quite eye-opening, because I think most people have no connection to their food, where it's like the grocery stores where the food comes from, it's like magically appears there, and that's sort of what got me into gardening as well, and there definitely is a connection, like when you grow your own food and you eat it, it's like almost magical in a way. And I see how you say like having a relationship with a farmer. Obviously everyone can't grow cows in their backyards, but I can see how that can sort of really impact your perception towards food.
Yeah, but even like vegetables, it's like, you're Italian, but one of my best friends growing up is Italian, and his no lives close to my parents' place, and so I've been going there like a couple times in the last month or so, and dude, it's just like I just get so much joy of being able to see this, this backyard full of like lush gardens.
That's what I feel in the morning. I wake
Yeah.
up as per my routine. I just go talk to my tomato plants. And,
Yeah.
My neighbors probably think I'm crazy.
Totally.
Well, actually, my neighbors are Italian, so they understand. They're probably doing the same thing.
Right. But then also the no who's like 80, and the guy's like,
My grandpa lives to 95, and he's
Yeah.
still working in the garden. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, it's got to be a combination of the food and the passion for it. It
Yeah.
helps you to live longer. But yeah, definitely a lot there. And it's crazy how like we've come so far that most people have no connection.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the population has never grown something that they've grown and eaten.
Totally.
Right? Like,
Totally. Yeah.
Like, and I felt there was something missing, and I wanted to sort of experience that myself.
For sure.
Also having a good role model like my grandfather. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so sorry, we sidetracked a bit
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So you start eating the healthier meat, and
Yeah.
you feel this connection. And
Yeah.
when did it shift
Turn
into like
bone broth.
a business?
Yeah.
Like
So yeah, it wasn't right away where I discovered bone broth and kind of like the healing benefits around it. It was more, I would say that was closer to like 2015. Yeah, about 2014, 2015. I was like traveling the world. I was
Burning Man.
Burning Man, almost around that time. But I was actually at a movement camp that was taught by a movement teacher named Ido Portal.
I've interviewed him before. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Yeah. He's
Back
a
in the day,
brilliant guy.
brilliant guy. Yeah.
Incredible teacher. And we were in Thailand, I remember, and some of his like closer students, they would talk to him more about diet, and so he wouldn't talk about diet to anyone other than his like super close students. So I would like ask some of them like, how do you guys eat? What's your diet like? And one of the guys was telling me like he was just eating organ meats and bone broth for his like animal proteins. And I was like, really? Like, why not? Like, why no muscle meat? I don't understand. He's like, yeah, it's just like there's some research that shows like there's inflammatory whatever, like that. It was his perspective on it, and so he was just eating organ meats and broth, and I was like, that's so extreme. Like, the second I went home, I tried it. I'm like, I'm just gonna try this. Like, why not? I know organ meats like have a lot of nutrients in them and stuff too, so and
also they can collect a lot of like antibiotics, pesticides if you're not going to the organic route.
Exactly,
Right?
yeah. If
So
you're
you gotta
getting
be
shit-
careful.
yeah,
If you're
yeah.
just getting like conventional like
Totally.
chicken liver, like,
Totally.
you gotta be careful because it concentrates.
that's like the worst. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Just letting you guys know in case you want to try that.
Yeah.
Go grass-fed organic.
So yeah, at that time I went home and I was just like, I had a half count basically in my freezer, so I had like tons of bones that I wasn't using. So I started cooking bone broth, and honestly, man, immediately I just started feeling these like incredible benefits around consuming bone broth every day. Like every time I would have a cup in the morning, every morning from the start, I'd feel this like energy that I just don't feel in the morning. I'd usually be waking up pretty groggy. So that was like one of the major things, and my sleeps were actually getting better too, because I would have a cup in the morning and then another one at night before like around dinner time, and it just was like super satiating. So I was decreasing the amount of muscle meat I was eating. Like in that time I wasn't eating any muscle meat, and I realized like I was eating too much muscle meat. Like I was
Like I'm a vegetarian, but I think in
Yeah.
general, most people eating
Yeah.
meat 2 to 3 times a day, like it's got to be too much. I look back
Yeah.
at like ancestors, like my grandparents living in Italy that were
Yeah.
poor.
Yeah, no, I feel you, man. That's one of the things I've changed with my own diet and habits of eating over the years is when I was ordering the meat from the start, I was having meat like twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, and I just realized like, man, this is too much.
A lot to digest.
Yeah, and when I discovered bone broth too, it was really nice because it was like, something that was a lot easier on the digestive system. So now like I'll have meat like once a day max, but even I try to limit it to like 3 times a week now or something like that. It still makes me feel really good, but but if I know when it's like too much, and my portions are much smaller too. Yeah.
So you're feeling great, you're drinking
Yeah.
bone broth, and then like one day Tim's like, I'm gonna start
Yeah.
a bone broth company.
Well, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and like, I was working with my dad at the time in real estate. I knew this isn't what I wanted to do. I wasn't really fulfilled in that. And actually a buddy of mine came to me and said like, hey, he had just started a food business a year ago, and it was like a paleo sauces thing. And he's like, hey man, I want to pivot into bone broth. He's like, do you want to do this with me? I was like, yeah, I just came back from Thailand, and this guy was telling me all the amazing benefits of bone broth. I just started drinking it. Fuck yeah, I do. And we started doing research, it was 2015, started doing research. It's like, no one's fucking doing this. There's like one company in the States, there's like one company in Western Canada, and like no one's doing a good quality broth. And so we were like, let's do this, you know? And so we started working on like a business plan. We didn't have any money. We tried to raise some money. No one would give us money.
She loved that.
Yeah. Then I went to Burning Man in 2015 for the first time. And then coming back from Burning Man, I'm like, my mind's blown because it's Burning Man for the first time. And the guy who I started the business with calls me. He's like, hey man, I'm done with Broya. I'm moving back to Hong Kong. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? So I had a big decision to like keep going with the business, and I ended up doing that. I ended up raising like 50 grand, like just to get the ball rolling pretty much. You know, like I would tell my parents and people about this idea, and they'd think I was crazy. And I just did it, man. I just went for it because I had no background in CPG or food or anything like that. I had to learn everything from food science to sourcing to.
I remember you coming by back. You know, I also have food sales experience in my life, and I remember him coming by and like telling me about the product. And I remember around that time. It's probably around 2016 because that's around when I met Mike.
Exactly. Yeah. Came by and we were talking about potentially working together, right? Yeah. And I was like still too early. I was still trying to figure out the recipe and all that stuff. And that's really what got me going, because I was like, I think this is a good, like, to me, I'm like, this product makes me feel like incredible, and like literally nobody knows about this right now. And so that was like a big reason why I wanted to bring it to the world, because and there were a lot of broths out there, or like bone broths, or like the ones you see in the Tetra Pak and stuff, and they were bullshit, to be honest. Like, they're not real. They're not even made with real bone sometimes, and it's just this big farce really that's like going on in this bone broth category.
The food industry has a lot of interesting dynamics to it, where people are like trying to cut corners or overmarket things to make them like, hey, like this is healthy, and put a green label on it, and blah blah blah. And a lot of food scientists out there that try to like make things taste like this or feel like that. So
totally, man.
Okay, so then you had a launch, and
yeah. I mean, it was 2016, like late 2016, when I finally had a product that I was confident to go into the market with. So I launched in like some local grocery stores in Toronto, and then by like the year after, like Whole Foods, I presented to Whole Foods in Canada. They were interested. I met Whole Foods, and the Whole Foods buyer told a couple distributors that they wanted to carry my product, and like 2 distributors called me on the same day. They're like, hey, Rob from Whole Foods is wanting your product. We need to basically do what he says, you know? And it's like, and I'm like, great. So now I got 2 distributors.
And the business started growing from there.
Yeah, it started growing from there. Yeah, and then, you know, like a lot of ups and downs from that point on.
So like, I know like the whole entrepreneurial lifestyle is very attractive these days. It's like the new like celebrity rock star type thing. You got the Elon Musks of the world, and like all these people that are like just really living these crazy lives. So a lot of people want to get into it. But what are some of like the challenges? Because it's not all exciting. I think like books will be written on like, you know, the spiritual growth aspect of being an entrepreneur, like the challenges it presents to you and brings you down to the depth of like really having to like question yourself and like self-worth and making decisions that may affect your product and the people that consume it. And so what were some of the challenges that stood out, like were like turning points? I remember a few times you were like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And like,
there were many times where I almost shut it down, for sure. I mean, one of the big things I realized early, and like the thing I love about entrepreneurship, is like you can't hide from yourself. You know, like whatever you're dealing with inside is gonna come out into the business world, because it's your responsibility. You're the last line of defense here. If something goes wrong, it's your fault. You know, or it's your responsibility to take care of it and find a solution. So one of the big things I realized early on was how little confidence I had in actually, you know, creating something that people would actually pay for. You know, I noticed like very early on, I'm like, I would be at like a trade show and someone would buy like, you know, a bottle. They'd be like, this is good. They buy a bottle and I'm like, holy fuck, seriously? Like these guys are spending $10 on a bottle. I'm like, someone just paid me $10 to like, for something I just created in the kitchen, you know, that like, it was an idea 2 months ago, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I find too that, there's 2 interesting things that I've noticed about. One thing is like the way you sort of the way you are, you start attracting that type of customer to you.
Yeah.
So like someone who's like really cheap, doesn't want to pay for things, and like complains a lot, and then you start attracting those kind of people into your business.
Totally.
So I find that super interesting. Oh, there's another point I wanted to make as well.
Yeah. But that's a good point, because that is something that I fell into a trap with, and like my margins were just going smaller and smaller and smaller, because like really inside I was like, I don't know if this product's actually worth that much, which actually is the message of me being like, I actually don't know if I'm worth that much, you know?
Exactly.
And so recently, like in the last year, and actually Shane, who's right there.
He's gonna meet Shane in a few minutes.
Who's selling the most high priced product
per milliliter in the marketplace.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
The liquid gold.
I mean, it was a big part of what he taught me. It was just like, man, fuck that. Like, look at what you're doing. Like, that product's worth so much.
Mm-hmm.
And like, no matter what, you're always going to get someone who's going to complain about the price. Like, that's just the
nature
law.
of the market.
The law of the market, you know? And so, yeah, and a year ago, I raised all my prices, and I was like, if I'm actually going to make money, like,
I gotta raise my prices.
yeah, like I need to actually hit this margin, and like I can't sacrifice that. So I did it, and I was like expecting sales to go down, but nothing changed. You know, like people were still buying it.
And your profit margins just
Yeah, my
jumped up.
profit margin jumped up. Yeah, so
I think it's a really good point to, raise.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of the times in your head, things are a lot different than they are in reality.
Yeah.
So there's this fear that comes up that holds you back in business, but it's the same fear that holds you back in life.
Yeah.
Taking that jump, or like
Totally.
putting yourself out there, or taking a chance. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna fail. This fear of all this stuff. Meanwhile, it's like 100x in your head. In reality, it's like nothing really.
Totally.
And I guess my question we just answered that I remembered was, like a lot of times in business, a simple change in perception that the entrepreneur, the owner has, will shift the entire business without anything really changing in the real
Right.
world.
Exactly.
It's just the way you perceive yourself in the business.
Right.
Like for me with Elemental, in the beginning when, it was slow, we were just starting, we have a float studio, and, I was attracting these people who were like trying to not cut corners, but save money, because I was just really looking at my costs and like just
Yeah.
really worrying all the time. So like people who were worried about their finances coming in. And then I was like, okay, if this is going to work, this is going to change. Like the energy I'm giving off is just nervous and scared. And I just want to make sure that everyone that comes in here, I'm just going to treat them like they're the most important person in the world, because they are when they come in here.
Right.
And I'm just going to show them the best service possible. And if the business fails, I don't even care.
Right. Yeah.
And immediately when I made that decision to show up differently, like the whole business shifted. The energy that I brought into the company and that I was attracting was just like total difference. And I guess that's probably the aha moment that you just described with like raising your prices.
Totally.
It was just like, hey, let's make a shift here because we're worth it.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I believe in this. And,
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the belief, I think, is the most important. Believing in yourself or believing in your product.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes it's hard to sell something you don't believe in.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Like your partner probably that flew to Hong Kong,
Yeah.
didn't believe enough.
Yeah, he was really just going after an opportunity, and that, man, that's one thing that, again, like Shane and I were talking about earlier, actually, was like, we have as an entrepreneur, you have a few shots, because so when you decide to do something as an entrepreneur, when you decide to like take on a business, like you're giving that thing a shot for like 2 to 3 years. At least.
I would say you have unlimited shots.
Right.
But if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're wasting a lot of time. Because a lot of those.
Yeah.
Because for me before, it was like, can I make money doing that? I
Right.
try it.
Right.
Because I thought it was all about making money. But what people don't realize, or maybe some of them do, is like what you do for a living. It's like you're gonna spend a majority of your life doing it.
Yeah.
That's like your life.
Totally.
So like if you're doing something you hate and it makes a lot of money, like you're really sort of like giving something up for something else.
Totally.
I mean, you realize that money's not gonna make you happy, which I realized years ago as well.
Yeah.
You start thinking like, why am I even doing this in the first place then?
Right.
To make money that's not making me happy, wasting my time doing something I hate.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Totally,
exact
man.
realization. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So what's next for Broya? Like where are you now? What's the vision? I know you're looking at maybe raising some funds to expand.
So focusing pretty much 100% on e-commerce. And like we're in these.
Let's talk a bit about then the food business. It's always been a challenge for a lot of food, especially like startups, healthy, because the food cost gets a bit expensive. Like how's that been for you transitioning into more online, especially now during COVID? I guess.
So I'm lucky that like a lot of food businesses, e-commerce is not a good play. And actually like a lot of people probably focusing on e-commerce as food businesses don't even know that, but they think it's just the right thing to do right now. But really, the reason it's a good play for bone broth and for Broya is because when people buy bone broth, they're buying like 12 bottles. One of the biggest things is like you need to have a good average order value online. So our average order value online is like $80 to $90 an order.
There you go.
So now, okay, shipping makes sense. Now with product costs, like
Buying
there's
one
margin.
bottle would not make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't even like advertise that or even offer that. Like we're gonna be even taking that off, you know. So and then eventually, you know, it's.
Do you guys offer any subscriptions? Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So exactly. So it's like a whole ecosystem with like, you know, investing in the Facebook
Healthy
ads,
lifestyle, invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Get Broya.
Yeah.
You can get shoulders and biceps like Tim.
Yeah, that's right.
And a great style as well. You know?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
that's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to keep this episode a bit short, just
Right.
talking about the business aspect. Tim's a very dynamic guy. He's into things like IFS. He was an avid burner, at least now. I don't know what's happening with that with COVID. So definitely want to follow up on a separate podcast and dive deeper into like the IFS and some of that kind of stuff. But is there anything you'd say to like someone starting up in like a healthy food business that you wish someone would have told you when you were starting? Like any words of advice that you think would have been helpful that you've learned over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, what I would tell someone who's like just starting a food business, like really, like what I wish someone told me was like really around numbers, you know, and really understanding like what it takes to actually start a business, like what my costs really are, what the retailer is going to take, what the distributor is going to take, or if you go e-commerce, it's like, you know, what's your cost per acquisition per person, you know? So nothing like super deep or spiritual, but just like
Understand
logical,
numbers,
you know?
You know what I get people all the
and
time.
realistic.
Yeah, my mother makes an amazing lasagna. I think I could sell it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot of questions that go into that.
Yeah. I get a fucking like I get like stressed when I think about that. It's like,
you know, like wow. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So that's great advice, and I agree with that. It's like just really before starting the business, understand all the cost structures, and I guess pick what your avenue is going to be. Do you want to focus on online? Do you want to focus on retail? Do you want to focus on like food service? If in the food business, there's so many different avenues you can play in. Yeah. Some people try to hit all at once. I would say like focus on one, establish yourself, and then see if you can spread further. So
focus on one sales channel, whether that's like retail or e-commerce, and then like if you choose, let's say e-commerce, focus on one marketing channel, Facebook ads. That's it. You know, like, and you know, and so and get very like focused on your business model and your structure and what you're going to be good at, because you can't be good at everything. You know,
the first time you went on Facebook, did you ever think like one day I'm going to be selling food on through Facebook?
Right?
It's so crazy.
I know, right?
The world is changing quickly. So where can people find Broya if they want to check it out or try 12 bottles? You're shipping to the U.S.?
Nah, by January we will be.
January 2021. Cool.
Yeah, so broyaliving.com, BROYA living.com. Yeah, you can find us there. And
you guys on Instagram or any social?
Yeah, at Broya Living. Yeah, and I answer all emails, all Facebook messages. It's still me, just like one-man show with like a few subcontractor kind of people. But yeah.
Awesome. So Tim's a great guy. Check him out. Support him. Try the bone broth. I'll be honest, I have not tried it because I'm vegetarian, but I've seen the look on people's faces at trade shows, and I feel confident enough to say that it looks like they're really enjoying it, or they're just really nice people. But I'm going to go with the previous things, that it's a great product, and I know a lot of people that really stand behind it and support it. So check him out and send him an email, pressure him to make some sort of medicinal mushroom vegetarian bone broth, because I need that. Thanks, brother. Great to see you. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
We'll have you on again soon. Thanks, guys. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like what you hear, please share it. Thank you for subscribing, liking the channel. Hit that notification button so you get cool videos from us when we do them.